Good morning. Moroni and Path is the largest Italian technical advisor. We are part of the Kiwa Group since last August. Kiwa is one of the largest global certification companies with almost 50 people working, over 4,000 employees in over 100 companies. I'm going to focus on our core business, and I want to be rather quick. I think at this time of the afternoon, it may be difficult to swallow further facts and figures, so I'm not going to show you all the slides because some of them concern issues that have already been discussed by other speakers. So, in Europe, investments on renewables is growing everywhere, and Italy is no exception. New capacity that we want to achieve until 2023 is around 10 gigawatt, but the market is stable. But it's not really stable. We are working on some pipelines for a couple of gigawatts, and other technical advisors are developing similar infrastructures. So I think the market is actually starting to develop more. Developers are starting to work very hard on this. I'm not going to talk about this thing, but basically in Italy, for utility scale, we produce plants on roofs and on land. The ESR decree concerns industrial uh, um, applications. The first auction has come out. Almost all the projects are going to have a price of around 65 cents. That's quite a good price, but how long is it going to last? Well, it's hard to say. When large solar plants will be available, are available, prices will start to drop. For plants on agricultural lands, most of those we are following are actually, as I said, on agricultural lands. And I'm not going to talk about the decree again on ESR, on RES, or on prices that have already mentioned by other speakers. So I'll focus on technological drivers. Following the market very carefully and providing advice to our clients, large investment funds, large operators, we're always trying to provide information so that they may minimize their LSOI. Developers normally want to increase production capacity in any hectare of land. Conversely, our idea is different. We say, okay, let's start this plant and try to make it as effective and efficient as possible. The technology is monocrystalline modules, but there are also other things, PERC and other kind of modules that are gaining ground. The main difference between 2008 and 2020 concerns the installed power. In the past, there was 1 megawatt on 2 hectares. Now it's 1.5 megawatts, and that's, of course, good for soil to reduce soil coverage. String inverters require optimization of civil works, plant availability, maintenance cost, spare parts availability, and plant monitoring. I think that at the moment there are 5, 6, or 7 gigawatt of production that is actually at risk in Italy. Um, Most of our investors use monoaxial trackers that provide a good performance, good reliability, reasonably low price, and are easy to install. Bifacial modules are also gaining ground with a slight price increase. You can improve production capacity. So bifacial plants are worth more than monofacial plants because they produce more. Depending on power, you can have, as I said, string or centralized inverters. The market is more interested in string inverters in very large plants. Perhaps this is not the case. The advantages of string inverters, as I said, is that once you have it, it remains productive for a long time, much more than in centralized plants, even though those that are available now are smaller than they were, are larger than they were 5 years ago or 6 years ago. But if you have a small centralized system, when you stop a machine, you stop the production of one tenth of a megawatt. Now, this module price trends is following the drop in cost and help us to make these plants profitably. These are data taken last year. You see that the value of 2019 was completely different from expectations. I think it was 82. Yeah, 820,000 euro per megawatt for a utility scale plant. That doesn't make sense. For 20 megawatt, the price would be 550 euro per megawatt. So they completely missed the real price of capex. Let's say that normally this is the threshold you can expect for high tension plants. In terms of authorization, depending on where you want to place the implant, you require different authorizations. It can be a simple communication to the municipality for building integrated plants. For industrial plants, and I wrote an article, and I read another article recently on this, shows that industrial market has slowed down, not because companies are not interested, but because often they don't know how to make a plant, and they know much about its cost effectiveness. PAS is interesting. This can be done on flat rooftops with any power, and then there's the single authorization, as we call it, issued by the regional and provincial government. I think that we can't certainly say that there's been a streamlining in authorization in Italy. Um, Within PAS, there are many subdivisions depending on a number of factors. So it's extremely complex. So it seems that politics really has no clue of what they should do to streamline procedures in this sense. With regard to the environmental side, well, that's an important part of authorization. Above at 1 megawatt of power, there's less attention. Uh, if you fail the screening, it's a loss. So since the procedure is quite long, other options are more interesting. Trento with 200 kilowatt have chosen the EIA, for example, and then the new procedure put in together single authorization and EIA that should drive the new development in Italy to establish a clearer set of rules. Again, on the left you can see the single authorizations, where you can see that this can be issued by the regional government, by both the regional and the provincial government, only by the latter. Then the environmental impact assessment, you can see again who is responsible for what. And then there are regions with official detection of unsuitable sites for PV installation. If one area is suitable, authorization should be issued more simply, but in fact this is not the case. In Sardinia, they have the single authorization for plants over 1 megawatt. For Lazio, the province gives the single authorization and the regional government is responsible for EIA. When they're over 3 megawatt, they need to have environmental impact assessment and not a single authorization. Strange as it may appear, I mean, it doesn't make any sense, does it? Then Puglia, Sicilia have further differences, and this responsibility is in the hands of other bodies. But how long does it take in Italy to get an authorization? On average, we can say that the time you need is from 1 to 3 years. In Sicily, in the past, it took 3 years. We hope that this has been stepped up now. Otherwise, we won't be able to do all we have to do by 2030. Conversely, in Piedmont, it takes about 1 year. The development of the improvement in authorization is gradually expanding northwards, where there are more industries, there may be a more stable grid, and so on. In terms of connections, of course, you need to have proper connections for a plant. You can have it basically below or above 10 megawatts. The time to provide an authorization is 18 to 25 months, depending on its complexity. So the market is moving ahead, but this process is quite time-consuming. In spite of all improvement in efficiency, the real market will be in the second half of 2020, where there will be an intensification of the first implants, and then in 2021 there will be an important peak in terms of gigawatt, 1 or 1.5. I think that in 2 years there will be at least 1 or 1.5 gigawatt more of solar energy. The cost of a connection for 25 megawatt can be about 1.5 million euro. These are the critical areas that you all know, where there's more density or where there are critical lines. But yet, most of this development is now occurring in the south. We already talked about modernization. what's going to be critical is in the next years to address the problem of electricity line saturation. That's the real obstacle, because in 3 or 4 or 5 years it will be congested, and modernization has to come in advance. Otherwise, that can really be a problem. So to get a permit, you have to have, of course, an area for the installation. You have to have final design and commissioning and decommissioning plan, a positive opinion for EIA screening or full EIA if necessary, and then communication of works commencement, completion according to requirements, compliance of the work with authorized project, implementation of mitigation works, and and the procedure to guarantee decommissioning and restoration. What are the critical issues here? Well, development has to be performed correctly from the very beginning, and not as was the case in the past, where often what was done was not in line with the project that had received authorization. Sometimes it was the opposite. The project that had received the authorization was not good and it was implemented as such. I think we have to do the opposite thing. We have to make sure from the beginning the cost of energy production must be as low as possible. We have to produce energy as businessmen in the real sense. So we have to start in the right direction and focus on quality, on temperature of solar panels, the software, the maintenance cost, all sorts of details that are part of the project.
Cosa succede? La cosa importante è quando questi sviluppi arriveranno a termine, bisogna che questi sviluppi siano veramente ready to build e non progetti in cui devo
All
fare
these
vari passi
things
per realizzarli.
must
Questo per
be
dire correggere bene il progetto
done
all'inizio,
perfectly
fare un bel progetto all'inizio,
without
ci
the need
vogliono
for further
2
variations.
anni, 2 o 3
Otherwise,
anni
that
per
will
autorizzare
be
il
another
progetto.
waste of
Poi arriva
time
ready to build,
after
con i dirigenzi normalmente,
you
fortunatamente,
normally have a
questo va
project that
bene,
is
non è
theoretically
vecchio,
ready to
il
build.
layout
You
non è
can
ottimizzato,
and
fino a
find
troppo
out
strette perché
that there
dopo
are a
quando
number of
devono
problems
mettere
in terms
il
of
mega,
layout, in terms of
dottore
megawatt.
ci pensa sempre per 3 megawatt
Uh,
e quindi dopo il progetto produce di meno e quindi va
and
più lento.
so the project has a
E con la
lower
priorità con le regole ferme questo
production
si può ottenere.
capability. Okay, thank you very much for your attention.